I'm not quite sure where it is, but I know that we have a little bit of material to cover, and I wanted to make sure that everyone had, a chance to ask questions. So I don't want to cut into the time too much here. So first, I want to thank everyone for attending, second day of the conference. Hopefully everybody's been learning a lot and getting a lot out of these speaker sessions that we're having. First, before I even get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Jason Harrell. I am the Corporate Senior Information Risk Officer for Investment Management within BNY Mellon. So what does that really mean? It means that I am responsible for developing the information risk program for our asset and wealth management businesses. I'm based in New York, but I actually grew up not too far down the road here, a small town called Chicago. So it's great to be back here in the Midwest and actually able to speak with you here today. So first, before I even get started, within the presentation is I came up as a technologist. I was a network engineer, so I did Cisco products. So I have my CCNP, my CCDP, my CCIP, my CCSP, all the certifications that you would expect a Cisco engineer to have. That's my background. That's where I started before I got here today. So if I had my presentation deck up, you would probably see that it is very much pictures. I talk to pictures and I do illustrations and I do storytelling. Why is that? I think that I'm a firm believer that people learn and understand and retain information much better through stories and through illustrations than they do with rote memorization or documentation. Uh-oh. The second thing that I've been told is that I'm really bad at telling jokes. So I've really come up with the phrase of the jokes are cheap, but I pass the savings to you. So, laugh or don't laugh, you'll probably see me chuckle to myself because I'm actually thinking about what the joke actually did mean, at least to myself. The third thing is that I've been doing this for a little while, and I kind of have a story to go along with this. In the mutual fund industry, we have a fund board, and that fund board, for all those who invest in mutual funds, is responsible and accountable for ensuring that we are looking out for the best interests of the stakeholders and fulfilling our fiduciary responsibility to our clients. So in 2014, the SEC released its cybersecurity risk alert, which then told the boards that they are responsible and accountable for understanding the cybersecurity risk within the different mutual funds. So my compliance officer, he comes in, he asks me to speak. Of course, I'm there to speak about our cybersecurity risk and how we manage them. He gives an update, introduces me and everything, what I do for the organization, so on and so forth. So I get up and I'm about to do, I'm probably about 10 seconds into the presentation, and one of the fund board members raises their hand. They go, and you could tell he was struggling, and he goes, could you give me a bit more about your background before you got to Bank of New York Mellon? So I kind of chuckled, and I just looked at it, and I said, I think you just asked me how old I was. So anyway, I went through, and I told him, I gave him background, I'm RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, so on and so forth. He was like, okay. And then at the end, another one of the fund board members comes. He just passed me on the back. He's like, hey, it's a compliment. You don't look that old. So I said, okay, thanks a lot. And so I figured when I start my presentations, I'll just let everyone. I have been doing this for a little while, and are we all set?
No slides. No,
no slides.
Are they available online? Do you have like an email or something?
I have an email.
Like a Google Mail or something like that you can get to them on?
Oh, that I can get to them on?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay. We don't do.
Right.
We don't have them.
All right. Well, you know what I can do?
Okay.
I have them here.
Okay.
So I can hold them up for everyone.
All right.
Which is okay because most of them are actually going to be pictures anyway. And then I'll read them off to you. So number one, the threats that we're dealing with are changing dramatically. So people are talking about this stuff right now. The amount of worldwide press that this is getting is actually, increasing. Boards are aware of this. They're understanding this a little bit more. But again, they're still trying to get their arms around how it actually impacts their business areas. Number two, the changes in technology have been dramatic. And that the proliferation of network devices, the computational speeds have allowed for challenges in the way we do business. But with those challenges, with those changes and with the ability to, increase our level of productivity, it also has come with the price. And as my mom would say, that you have the right to choose, you do not have the right to choose the consequences. The consequences come with the choice. The consequences of having these technological advances has also had the flip side of having a major impact on our clients, the ability to meet our fiduciary responsibilities, to manage our risks, and have other negative impacts related to cyber risks. Number three, this is way bigger than technology. This is an enterprise risk issue. And I will repeat that. This is an enterprise risk issue. IT is an enabler. They can get us so far in what we actually need to do. Until the business takes ownership of the risk that it has within their different business areas, then this problem and the risks that we see are going to continue. You will not be able to get the resourcing you need in order to effectively manage the risk because they don't understand from a business aspect how it impacts their business. Last and not least, you can't keep the threat out. I think we've already covered this. I think in every presentation I've been here, seen either yesterday or today, we've talked about this ad nauseum, that, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, how do we identify these risks? How do we monitor? How do we respond? Because in today's world, and I think going into the future, it's going to be more of, you're going to be judged on how you actually respond to risk and, quickly identify risk than the actual breach itself. All is not lost. The world is not ending, but there is a lot of work to do. My next slide. Yep, that's not it. Should be this one. So, I live in New York City. New York City is comprised of about 8.5 million people. Over 800 languages are spoken, and it has about 55 million people annually that visit the city. So I thought, what better place to find out what cybersecurity is than to go around the city and actually ask individuals what cybersecurity is. So that's exactly what I did. What I have in this slide is some of the answers that I received from that. I got when someone steals your credit card information. I also got attacks from the internet. And the reason I don't let my parents do online banking, antivirus in large caps. But my favorite probably was, and Chris Hemsworth, who I later found out was Thor, who made an actual movie called Black Hat, which I actually decided to see. And if I ever see Chris Hemsworth, I'm going to tell him he owes me 2 hours for the life that I lost and will never get back. Because that was probably the most horrible movie I've watched in a while. But what I did learn was this, is that people equate cybersecurity in a way that it impacts them. They don't understand the risk, they don't understand the challenges related to the risk, but what they do know is if it has, an impact on their day-to-day, it has a negative impact on something that they want to do, that actually does have some type of value to them. And they will cast judgment on those who do not allow them to be able to move seamlessly through their day-to-day. The court of public opinion does not have a law degree. So again, their opinion matters because at the end, there are clients, there are customers, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that we're protecting their data and their information. Here's the other thing that I learned. When I started to read that statement and I started to try to really get my head around that, I realized our business managers are the same way. They understand that there's a challenge related to cybersecurity. They don't really understand it, but if it impacts their day-to-day, then they're going to, want to know what's going to happen with that. What are we doing? What are we doing as an organization in order to manage that risk? And so I think that we're in a position to really define that and really start to help our business managers and our business leaders get their heads around the cybersecurity risks that they have. Eyes of March. This is a star-studded movie. Ryan Gosling, George Clooney. I don't know if you all seen it. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Paul Giamatti. Star-studded cast. Unfortunately, I'm not talking about that Eyes of March. I'm actually going to talk about this Eyes of March. So what is the Eyes of March? Eyes of March is a day on the Roman calendar. It corresponds to March 15th. It was made famous by the assassination of one Julius Caesar in 44 BC. So for those who aren't familiar with the story, according to the story, a seer had warned Julius Caesar that at the Eyes of March, harm would come to him. So on the Eyes of March, Caesar was on his way to the theater of Pompeii when he saw the seer, and he told the seer jokingly, "The Eyes of March have come." And the seer said, "Yes, Caesar, but have not passed." So Caesar, of course, gets to the theater of Pompeii to meet with the Senate, where he is met by the Senate led by Brutus and Cassius, who summarily then stab Caesar to death, again fulfilling the seer's prophecy. What followed from that was a civil war in which Julius Caesar's son, Octavius Augustus, came to power and then exacted revenge in his father's death. So, as we have it, Caesar did not heed the warnings, but there were plenty of signs that, he should have been concerned. But unfortunately for Caesar, his demise came before he actually realized that. So then I asked myself, do we have the signs? And unfortunately, I don't want you to have to read this slide, and ideally it would come up as a little bit at a time. But so I'll start with Anna Kournikova. For those who were in technology at the time this came out, you know that there was an email that was sent out to everyone, and you clicked on the link because you thought it was a picture of Anna Kournikova, and it went to your Outlook address book and sent emails out to everyone. And that was annoying because you had to do some cleanup. There wasn't any direct financial impact that individuals could see, but for us as technologists, we would have to go and then deal with that. And so our response was deal with it, don't allow executables via email. That was what we learned. Then it started to get a little bit more destructive, and we'd go into SQL Slammer, which was basically an overflow bug, causing machines to crash. And actually it crashed Bank of America's ATM system. It caused Continental Airlines to cancel flights, and it disrupted Seattle's 911 emergency system. I know that because I was living in Seattle at the time. The sad reality of this was that patch was available about 6 months before the virus actually hit. So what did we all do? We had to say, well, we need to get on patch management. Then it got really, really bad. Storm. Actually, let me go to Zeus. This is when we started to see the direct financial impact. This was used to steal banking information through keystroke logging. And then through that keystroke logging, the attackers would then go into people's online banking accounts and siphon money. Now, as a business, we could see a direct impact. Before, when we were here in the nice, happy blue stage, it was time and effort to be able to clean up and do whatever in order to get us back online. When we started to get to 2007 and we started to see the stealing of banking information and the direct financial impact within the finance industry, then that's when we realized that we had a problem. Ransomware, crypto locker, again, criminal enterprising, being able to hold people's files and information for ransom, and then that turns around and then funds other illicit activities, and then RAIN, and this is mass surveillance, nation state mass surveillance. I won't go into who, but again, people are starting to realize that we can use technology and the interconnectedness of people to be able to impact an end customer or a client. So we had the signs, they were there. Oh, sorry, that one doesn't have anything on. On the other side of this, so world events. You had the Estonia in 2007. You had Georgia in 2008, and I won't go too much into these for the interest of time. We had Saudi Aramco. For those who weren't familiar with that, that was a malicious attack against the Saudi Aramco oil company in which they took 3/4 of their machines and basically turned them into bricks. It took them 10 days to recover from that, and they did it on the evening of the equivalent of the Muslim equivalent of Christmas Eve. Who wouldn't love to have that happen to them? In order to take that exploit. And then, of course, we all know about 2014 and the Sony incident, and the impact that had. Oh, it's blue now. So what do? I said, go technology, go. All right, let's get all this stuff in there. We got antivirus, we got USB device managers, we got patch management. We put all this tooling in, and we wrap it up in a SIM so that we can get some reporting, and that's going to help us. And it does help us a little bit. But again, we're still falling behind. So I would go to security conferences, and they would talk about, well, we need to protect the device. If we can protect the device that has the information on it, then we can actually affect better security controls. Well, in 2014, the number of devices outnumbered the amount of people that we have on Earth. That's kind of hard now. You can't protect all the devices. So we said, well, let's protect the data. Let's get to the data. If we find out where the data is and we put protections around the data, well, then we can, actually execute good security. Well, the data that we have on Earth in electronic form is approaching 1.2 zettabytes. That's 21 zeros. That's a lot of data. YouTube alone receives 48 hours of video content every minute. There's over 200 million emails sent in that same amount of time. So again, the data is starting to increase faster than we can actually get our arms around it. This one everybody can see. So I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Nucky Thompson. He's a featured character on the HBO series Boardwalk Empire. And he had a comment that I thought about for a long time where he said, winning is expensive, but not as expensive as losing. And I thought about this because, we're always talking about cost savings. How are we going to save costs and cut costs and do what we need to do from an information security standpoint? Well, the truth is that for many organizations, this, while we've seen it within our own ranks as information security or cyber risk officers, we've seen the trend. For a lot of the business areas, this is new. So now you're trying to tell them we're going to save money by trying to institute controls. The thing is that they didn't even know they were spending money in the first place. So now, trying to sell them on cost savings becomes difficult. So I've gotten out of the business of trying to do cost savings. I just tell them, winning is expensive. We are going to have to spend some money. We're going to have to do something to institute the controls. Not necessarily because of regulation, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients and customers, first and foremost. Regulatory, yes, we do have to manage that and manage the risk related to our regulatory requirements, but first and foremost, we do have a fiduciary responsibility. So, what do we know now? Because I like to recap some of these things so that we don't get lost. So, number one is that people and our businesses only understand cybersecurity in the ways that it affects them. Number two, just as in the eyes of March, Julius Caesar, the changes and exposures of those threats have caused us significant harm. And we are at war. But technology alone will not win this war. Just like the death of Julius Caesar resulted in the evolution of the Roman Empire, the world will change. All right. So I want to go a little bit into, some of these changes that we've been experiencing. We're connected in ways that we weren't 10 years ago. Events that, happen, thousands of miles away can actually affect the way our financial markets work and affect our way of life. We're able to connect to people socially, through Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Snapchat. And we're also able to manage our finances on that same device. Technology has created some economic prosperity. If you think about brain mapping, being able to provide high resolution maps of the brain so that, in the medical industry, we could figure out, how our brain works. Genome editing allows neuroscientists to be able to get a better handle on diseases and what may cause diseases and how to block, the effect of those diseases, within the human race. Genome mapping with cloud security, we're now able to have enough processing power to map the human genome in about 5 minutes. And 10 years ago, that would have taken over a month. With the proliferation of these network devices, the cost of these devices have come down, leading to a rampant proliferation of these devices across not only the U.S., but globally. And, we've all been affected in one way or another, and that these impacts can actually change our way of life. So a lot of people go, well, Jason, you work in finance, so, you're heavily regulated, you're mandated to have controls, you don't really have a choice in the matter, so it's an easier sell to, for your business areas because you can tell them that it's a regulatory requirement and that they have to do it. Well, and we could say that, but, and it's a shame I can't make this bigger. I have technology risk management programs. And if you could see this slide, what you would notice is that we're trying to implement a lot of the same controls that you're trying to implement. Identity and access management, data loss prevention, change management, penetration testing. We're all trying to implement the same programs. The differences are within our business process risks. I work in asset management. So our investment management, which is our asset and wealth management groups. So when I talk to our business areas, yeah, I want to implement these programs, but I talk to them about their business process risks. So, just like your businesses and your directors, first we have to speak to the fiduciary responsibility that we have to our clients and customers related to these risks. And they have to be told to the business in a way that they can understand how these cyber risks impact the way they make a profit or conduct their affairs. If you can't tell a business person how cyber risk will impact their ability to make a profit or conduct its affairs, you will never get the resources that you need to do the things up here that are going to help them manage their risk. I'm going to say it again because it's really important that if you don't tell the business and its directors how cyber risk will impact their ability to make a profit or to conduct its affairs, then you'll never get the resourcing that you will need in order to manage the risks that you need to manage within your organization. So when you want to talk to things that the businesses understand, they understand fiduciary responsibility. I think as Nancy was saying on yesterday, the NACD, they all know about fiduciary responsibility. It's part of their handbook, it's part of their language, it's part of their lingo. So explain to them how doing the things that you need to do from a cyber security standpoint will help them fulfill their fiduciary responsibilities and their expectations. Client expectations. They have an expectation of management of controls to their shareholders. So, we all know that, people are going to, and we talked about this earlier, that people understand cyber risk as it affects them. If there's a breach or if there's an impact to that organization, it will affect their stock price. That stock price will affect their shareholders. So, when you start talking and describing these risks and the impact, and you can use examples, and they could be really short, but you could show that, impact, shareholder price value, that, number two, our shareholders are expecting that. And then last but not least, then I talk to regulatory expectations. Because if I'm able to demonstrate how we are managing the risks and showing how we are effectively building programs to manage risks and tie that back to how that maps to our top risks, then from a regulator standpoint, and we're keeping the regulators tied in, they're understanding what we're doing, they're understanding what, that we understand what our top risks are when it comes to cybersecurity. And they can track to that. They just want to be able to see progress. They want to see that you as a business understand those things that are important to you and have your arms around it and can actually manage it. I think by understanding your business finding partnership opportunities with your business. And I'm not talking about just, going to the business and saying, hey, I want to help you, and you guys sit down and then you just send them information. I mean, honestly, sitting down with them and helping them and partnering with them so that they can see that you are a trusted partner or a trusted advisor for that business. I think that would go a long way in actually getting them to see, it's a training opportunity for them, but they also then understand how these risks can affect their businesses, and they take greater ownership of those risks. And then I think you'll find that with that your ability to generate the budget to be able to address some of these risks will become realized a lot easier. I'm going to jump around here. Luckily, I have slides on paper, so I can do that because I want to have time for questions. I know we have 10 minutes. For those who are part of a regulated entity, you will see that there's been a lot of activity over the last 2 years around cyber. I won't touch everything on this slide, but what I will say are 3 things. One is the president, in just about every one of his national addresses, has had some statement about cybersecurity. In addition to that, he's also had, the executive orders for cybersecurity and information sharing and presidential policy directives. So this is getting the highest level of attention within the states. The second is the U.S. Congress is involved. They are actually talking to the regulators. They want to know what their role is going to be in securing our infrastructure and, what they need to be doing to, help businesses out. This isn't something that, is going to just go away or is going to be swept under the rug. All of our businesses, whether they're currently regulated or not, are going to be held to a standard, and that standard is going to be held by the people who we actually elect. And then the third is around the NIST framework. So, this is currently being looked at as, the standard of choice. It's still going through numbers of revisions. It's still being talked about as people having to have some level of commitment to adhering to the NIST standard. So for those who haven't seen the NIST framework, I would encourage you all to go and get that. And Charlie Wilson's War. This is my last slide. For those who haven't seen the movie, basically it's about how Charlie Wilson, played by Tom Hanks, actually uses his power as a senator to get the Afghans out of, get the Russians out of Afghanistan. Gust, who is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, assists him in this effort, through his lack of diplomatic skills and his ability as a international spy. They do everything they need to do. The Russians leave Afghanistan, and then at the end, when Afghanistan needed to be rebuilt, we kind of just left them to their devices. To which Charlie Wilson said that those things happened, they were glorious, they changed the world, and then we messed up the end game. So my message here is that, we're fighting this fight. We're trying to put things in place that we need to have in place within our organizations. But in doing that and getting that support, we're going to have to do some partnership, and we're going to have to teach the business, and we're going to have to pull them along. Otherwise, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to miss the end game because we're just looking at it from a technology standpoint. And then I think that will be an unfortunate mistake for all of us. Again, I'm sorry, the slides are probably going to be made available, but at this time I would like to open it up for questions.
You've been in this business more than a couple of years. If you look at your role 10 years ago and what you did to be successful successful and what you have to be successful now, what would you say are some of the top things that have changed, or what has stayed the same?
Well, I would say that what has changed is, for me, 10 years ago, it was very much technology focused, meaning that, the regulators said that we need to have, vulnerability management and patch management. We had to have change management, and everybody was looking at the technology controls to implement cybersecurity and manage their cybersecurity risk. The changes that I see now are that we're slowly trying to change that mindset from a technology-based, IT is going to fix everything, to an enterprise risk management problem. And I would say that now, after, all the events that have happened, some of the changes in the NACD around cybersecurity risk and understanding those risks, that, corporations want to know more, what is IT doing, but also what are we doing as a business to actually manage those risks? Because there's things that technology just doesn't see. Technology doesn't see client contracts or investment management. They don't see our investment management agreements. So if I ask them to put in, some type of control, or I ask them to insert some type of technology, and I'll give a good example of this. We have, say you have a Cayman Island trust, and you go to technology and you say, I need to, upgrade this technology, and technology comes back and says, oh, great. Well, I noticed that your IT is in Singapore, but it would be much faster if we put it in the UK. And you go, great, yeah, that sounds great. Let's move it to the UK. They'll get better performance, and we'll upgrade the hardware, and everything will be nice. Until you realize that actually would equate into risk related to compliance and regulatory books and records, because now you are in a non-tax friendly, you're doing processing in a non-tax friendly environment. Oops. Technology is not going to know that. So what are we doing as businesses in implementing controls in order that we don't attain those types of risks? And then the question is that a cybersecurity risk, or is that a contract risk? One thing I do want to say, because I know one of the things I talk about is partnership with the business, and I think I would be remiss, because people are like, I want to partner with the business, but how do we do that? I mean, how do we actually get closer to the business? Because this is something that I had to struggle with as well, being from a technology background, is how do I get close to that business in order to be able to have them come to me when things are going wrong, or when they're going to do something, or how do I get them in mind? So, a lot of it was sitting down, awareness, understanding how their business worked. Business people love to tell you about their business. Trust me. If you ask them about their business and how it works, they will sit down and talk to you for hours, because they think what they're doing is great. And so finding those opportunities to, actually sit down with your business area, it might be over lunch, might be 30 minutes here. Don't put an hour in their calendar. They usually will decline it, but they'll sit with you for 30 minutes so that you understand how their business works. Then when you start to put together things that you want to do, put it in the context of how it'll affect the business that they are telling you about. So I used a lot of my time, whether I was in investment banking or in asset management, sitting down with portfolio managers, sitting down with the people on the trading desk, and understanding the risks that they see, partnering with regulatory compliance and risk, because they also have a certain viewpoint of things within the business and how the business actually functions, and you might be able to get more of their time. But then it helps you frame your arguments around why you need resourcing, or whether that's monetary or personnel, in order to actually implement your programs. Any other questions? Well, if not, I hopefully my information will be part of the slide deck, so everybody will have that. I'm more than happy to talk more about business partnership, and using that business partnership to actually get the resourcing you need. I think that is a vital thing that we need to be doing as information risk or cybersecurity specialists, because we know the problems. A lot of it is trying to get the financing or the resourcing to be able to make those changes that we need in our business. Okay.